When FBI agents showed up at Mar-a-Lago last June in response to a grand jury subpoena, the agents were given 38 classified documents and a signed statement that a, quote, diligent search was conducted and that all classified documents that Donald Trump took from the White House had been turned over. That turned out to be far from the truth. And the FBI returned just 2 months later with a warrant and retrieved more than 100 additional classified documents. Some of the most highly classified items were found inside Trump's personal office. New reporting from The Guardian indicates that Trump lawyer Evan Corcoran, who conducted the initial diligent search, told a federal grand jury that he had actually been told to steer clear of Trump's office and to only search a storage room, according to two people familiar with the matter. The Guardian adds that it was not clear who waved Corcoran off from searching elsewhere at Mar-a-Lago, Trump himself or Trump employees. But it suggests Corcoran was materially misled. As special counsel Jack Smith examines whether the incomplete search was actually a ploy by Trump to retain classified documents. It was just a few months ago that Corcoran testified in front of the federal grand jury investigating all of this under a court order. The Guardian also reports that, according to his own notes that were shared with the grand jury, Corcoran warned Trump that he could not keep any classified documents after he was subpoenaed for their return. Joining me now is Andrew Weissmann, MSNBC legal analyst, former FBI general counsel, and former senior member of the Mueller probe. Always great to talk to you, Andrew. So let's start with this, because that says obstruction to me, right? That someone is telling Evan Corcoran, well, don't look anywhere but just in this storehouse. So that feels like an obstruction thing. But explain to us, for those who don't know, how can somebody's lawyer testify to those things in court about their own client?
Sure. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right that this does smell a lot like obstruction. The reason that the lawyer can testify is because the then chief judge in D.C., Washington, D.C., ruled in favor of the government that with respect to the crime fraud exception. And that is it's not that hard to understand. What it basically says is if you're a client and you try to use your lawyer to commit a crime, then you can't also say there's attorney-client privilege. Right. So the judge pierced through that and found by a preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not, that a crime had been committed. And so that's why you have Mr. Corcoran being able to testify and his notes being required to be turned over. And I think the one way to think about what is, I think, potentially quite explosive testimony is basically tampering with a crime scene. Imagine after the police come and put tape around a particular location, Donald Trump or Mr. Nauta, but somebody took the smoking gun out of the crime scene and then said, oh, police, come look at the crime scene. But they actually had removed the evidence. And that is clearly what Jack Smith is investigating. And the big open issue in the reporting from The Guardian is who told Mr. Corcoran that he should only look in the storage locker. And that's where it is just beyond the pale to me that somebody who used to be a federal prosecutor would take that from some underling, knowing that your client is Donald Trump, knowing that he is truth challenged. You would really want to hear that from somebody quite reputable, meaning you're, in terms of somebody with firsthand knowledge, before you would make a representation to the government that you had done, as you pointed out, a diligent search.
And Mr. Nauta, of course, is Walt Nauta, and that is Donald Trump's valet, who might have been moving boxes at some point before this search, which is very sketchy. Speaking of lawyers, I want to read you my favorite line from this Daily Beast reporting about all of the lawyers who are now apparently at loggerheads with each other, wondering if any of them are snitches, which is why I wanted to ask you about that crime fraud exception, because, MAGA means making attorneys get attorneys, and now apparently they're fighting. Apparently, the lawyer who the other lawyers distrust the most is, of course, Boris Epshteyn. Folks will remember him from frequently appearing on MSNBC Dayside, sometimes opposite myself. And here is the quote. Boris pissed off all the Florida lawyers. People are dropping like flies. Everybody hates him. He's a toxic loser. He's a complete psycho, and said a second person who could barely contain the anger while discussing the matter. He's got daddy issues, and Trump is his daddy. That sounds to me like there's at least one lawyer, he's technically a lawyer, that seems to be willing to guard Trump from his own lawyers. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Well, you know, what it's to me when I read that reporting, it reminded me of the way Donald Trump ran the executive branch. In other words, think about the number of people who were fired or resigned and all of the infighting in his own administration, where we went through such an array of people. So clearly he is just not good at building a loyal team. And my word, at this point, that's exactly what he needs. When you are, you know, in a situation like this where you could be facing 2, 3, 4 indictments, the lawyers have to be working as a well-oiled machine. And unfortunately, you know, for Donald Trump, and maybe fortunately for those of us who think that accountability has been too long in coming, you know, he is not capable of building that kind of sort of loyalty where people work well together and are communicating well together. And having been on a lot of high-profile cases, it is necessary to have complete trust and faith in your colleagues, because that's the only way to work on a case like that.
Particularly when there are multiple potential indictments going on. I mean, in New York, you now have tapes. In that case, you also have the Attorney General's case in New York. He's got so many cases. If his lawyers are working together and he's an awful client, it's not looking good. Andrew Weissmann, I'll just say it's not. That's my legal term. It's not looking good. Andrew Weissmann, thank you as always.